Before we begin, take a moment, hit like, share, and subscribe, because what you're about to hear is more than just a story. It's a journey. I want to share Zuri's story. A story that begins with innocence and dreams and unravels into love, betrayal, and redemption. She was just a girl with plans for her future, until one decision changed everything. A forbidden love, a family torn apart, a journey of faith that would break generations of silence. But this isn't a tragedy. This is a story of forgiveness, of healing, of a woman who found her strength in the very place she thought she'd lost it. This is Zuri's story. A sin called love.
Welcome to the Stain family farm. The Stain family farm stretched wide against the beautiful Cape skies, a quilt of maize and wheat and grazing pasture, stitched together by dusty gravel lanes and old windbreaks of blue gums. In the early light, the windmill clicked its quiet rhythm. The dam shimmered like a polished coin, and the whitewashed farmhouse kept watch with green shutters, half open to the breeze. The bell at the back door, Alana's bell, hung ready to ring men in from the far fields at mealtimes. Dogs sprawled on the stoop where cool shadow met warm stone. Chickens pecked near the compost heap, clucking their opinions about everything. It was calm. It was peaceful. It had challenges, of course, but nothing said home like this for the Stains. Inside that house lived John Stain and his wife, Alana, with their 3 beautiful children. 6-year-old twin girls Rihanna and Sonia moved like sunlight wherever they went. A chorus of questions and bare feet and ribbons. The youngest, Daniel, 1-year-old and utterly convinced the world was a good place, toddled after them like a happy shadow. Both John and Alana came from farming families. The life had chosen them long ago, and if they had been offered 1,000 other paths, they would still have chosen this one. They knew the old rhythms: dawn chores before coffee, evening prayers before sleep, and the way the land keeps secrets and tells the truth at the same time. The beginning. Their story stretched back years, to high school in the boarding halls of Mpumalanga. At first glance, it might have seemed the classic boy meets girl tale, but in truth, it was anything but ordinary. John Stain, a focused 10th grader, broad-shouldered and bruised from rugby practice, had made a vow to himself. He would not waste time on girls. "I've got a bright future," he'd declare in the changing rooms, sweat dripping down his temples, his grin stubborn and unwavering. "Rugby, farming, studies, that's what matters." His friends groaned. "Yeah, John, until the right one comes along." They'd throw socks and muddy towels at him, laughing, while John only shook his head and brushed the grass off his uniform. The ridiculous thing was, it worked. Girls admired John's charm and confidence, but what set him apart was his refusal to chase after them. His aloofness made him mysterious. They whispered about him in the hostel corridors, giggled when he walked past, but John brushed it off like chalk dust shaken loose after a match. And then came Alana Boda. She was only in grade 8, shy, sweet-eyed, plaits, bouncing as she crossed the courtyard with books hugged to her chest. She had no idea she was about to undo John Stain's carefully ordered world. The first time he saw her, he froze mid-step. His heart thudded so hard he was sure the boys around him could hear it. His stomach flipped, his palms sweated, and in a dizzy rush of imagination, he saw it all: Alana in a wedding dress, sheep and maize on their farm, children running barefoot across golden fields. So lost was he in this daydream that he walked straight into a teacher. "Mr. Stain," the man snapped, "are you blind?" The boys around him roared with laughter. John muttered an apology, his ears blazing red. He barely heard the scolding. All he could think was, "She's the one." Alana noticed him too. She saw the tall, serious rugby player with the kind smile, and a way of carrying himself, as though the whole school rested on his shoulders. Their eyes met across the courtyard, just a glance. Nothing more, but something shifted. They didn't speak, not then, but silence stretched between them like a taut thread, every look a conversation. One sweaty afternoon after rugby practice, John walked beside him, waiting until the noise of the other boys faded. His voice was low, almost fragile. "Can I ask you something?" Peter shot him a look. "About the game." "Yeah, about the game. And about leadership." Peter raised a brow. He hadn't expected that. "Still," he answered, "talking about strategy, responsibility, the weight of being captain." John listened intently, nodding, asking thoughtful questions. Peter noticed humility in a 16-year-old was rare. That day laid the foundation of trust. Weeks passed. John played the long game. The season wore on, and rugby was no mercy. Practices left his muscles raw, his lungs burning with every sprint across the field. There were bruises on his ribs from tackles he hadn't seen coming, mud that clung to him like a second skin, and the constant sting of sweat in his eyes. More than once, he was flattened by older boys' men, really, who treated every practice like war. Peter Boda chief among them. John learned to stand back up without complaint, to grit his teeth and carry on. No swagger, no excuses, just the game. It wasn't glory that kept him going. It was the slow, stubborn belief that each drop of sweat, each clash in the scrum, each time he dragged himself off the turf, brought him closer to what mattered most, respect, and respect was the only path to Ilana. He kept his distance from Ilana, though his eyes were drawn to her. He'd see her in the library, framed by tall windows where afternoon sunlight turned the pages of her books to gold. She always sat in the same spot, back straight, her lips moving silently as she read. Sometimes scripture, sometimes novels. John wanted to speak to her so badly his chest ached, but he restrained himself. Not until he had her brother's blessing. Finally, one evening after practice, when the weight of it grew too heavy to carry, John spoke. His voice was steady but his stomach churned. "Peter, it's not about rugby this time. It's about your sister." Peter slowed his stride, his expression unreadable. "Ilana." John rubbed the back of his neck, his nervous tell. "Yeah, I wanted to ask. Would it be all right if I asked her out? Properly, respectfully. Just to a movie? Maybe ice cream after." Silence. Peter's gaze lingered, sharp and searching. He wasn't just weighing words, he was weighing character. At last, he nodded, slow and deliberate. "You may. But don't play games with her, Stan. She's not like the others." Relief crashed over John. He swallowed hard. "I wouldn't. I swear." "Ilana," he said softly. She looked up, startled. For a moment her eyes widened then softened. She closed her book gently, folding her hands on top of it. "John." Her voice was quiet, cautious, but not unkind. He shifted his weight, rubbing the back of his neck. I asked your brother something." Her brows lifted slightly. "Peter." "Yeah." He cleared his throat. "I asked him if it would be all right if I asked you out. To a movie? And maybe some ice cream after." A small silence. Her lips curved, almost shyly. "And what did he say?" John's grin broke loose despite his nerves. He said yes. Ilana tilted her head, studying him. "You went to Peter first." "Of course." His voice was firm, almost proud. "Respect matters. You matter." Her cheeks flushed. She dropped her gaze to her folded hands. But he saw the smile tugging at her mouth. "I like ice cream," she said softly. He exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders in a rush. "Then it's a date." Her lips parted into a shy smile. "I'll have to think about it. Maybe I'll let you know soon." John's heart leapt even at that almost answer. It was not rejection. It was hope. That night, John barely slept. He tossed and turned, replaying the moment again and again. By morning, he was so distracted he forgot half the answers on his maths test. The boy who never failed. Staines losing his edge, one mate teased, slapping him on the back. All over a girl. John forced a grin, but inside, his stomach churned. He was used to the certainty of rugby scores, the predictability of farm chores, even the order of scripture. But Ilana, she was the one thing he couldn't control. The days that followed were torture. He saw her in the corridors, in the library, under the jacarandas, but he avoided her gaze, terrified his face would betray his longing. He scribbled notes in class without absorbing a word. Nights were worse lying awake, rehearsing her possible answers, until exhaustion dragged him into restless dreams. He obeyed. For a while, silence lay between them. Then John steadied his nerves by asking about her day, about her classes, about her roommate who, as Ilana explained with a roll of her eyes, snored like a tractor. John laughed, tension easing from his chest, and then for the first time he heard her laugh too clear, musical. It sent a thrill through him, like a hymn sung at sunrise. Finally, gathering his courage, John whispered, "So, have you thought about it? About this weekend?" Ilana's cheeks flushed. She twisted the strap of her satchel in her hands before nodding once, shy but certain. "Yes," she said softly. Then firmer, "Yes, I'll go on a date with you." but I need to be back before 5. I've got studying to do. John's chest filled with relief so fierce it almost hurt. He grinned, wide and boyish. Deal. She tilted her head, amusement dancing in her eyes. You're very sure of yourself, John Stain. He swallowed, leaning just enough for his words to be steady. That's because I'm sure about you. For a moment, she only looked at him, her eyes wide and curious, searching for something in his face. And then softly, unexpectedly she smiled. The world shifted. John knew in that instant that everything he had imagined under the jacaranda's wedding dress, farm fields, barefoot children wasn't a foolish dream. It was a beginning. That Saturday afternoon, the two met near the jacaranda trees on the edge of the school property. Purple blossoms littered the ground like confetti, crunching softly underfoot as they walked out the gate to town. Alana looked down shyly, then up at John. So, what made you ask me? John rubbed the back of his neck. Do you want the honest answer? Yes, she said, firmly. He exhaled. The first time I saw you, I knew. I just knew. She blinked, caught off guard. Knew what? That you're the one, John said. His voice didn't waver, though his hands trembled slightly at his sides. The one I'll marry someday. Ilana stopped walking. Her eyes widened, then softened, a blush rising to her cheeks. That's a bold thing to say, she whispered. I'm a bold guy, he said with a grin, trying to mask the nervous pounding of his chest. And then, for the first time, she laughed. A bright, ringing laugh that made John feel as if the world had tilted into place. Back at the dorms. That evening, John's friends crowded around him in the dormitory. Well, did you talk to her? One demanded, his mouth full of chips. John tried to act casual, tossing a rugby ball in the air. We walked, talked, and nothing, John said, though a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. She laughed. His mates groaned. You're hopeless. One laugh and you're gone. John shrugged. Maybe, but it's the only laugh I'll ever need. The family finds out. Of course, word spread. Boarding schools had no secrets. By the next week, whispers reached Peter. He cornered John after practice, wiping sweat from his brow. So, my sister. John swallowed hard. Yes. Peter's eyes narrowed. And? You treat her right. Of course. John's voice was steady now. I meant what I said. I wouldn't dare play games with her. Peter studied him for a long, silent moment. Then he slapped him hard on the shoulder, half in camaraderie, half in warning. Good. Just remember, if you hurt her, you'll answer to me. John managed a tight smile. Fair enough. Back at the Boda household that weekend, Ilana sat at the kitchen table while her mother kneaded dough. You've been smiling all day, her mother remarked, raising an eyebrow. What's put that light in your eyes? Ilana tried to hide her grin behind her hand. Nothing. Her brother Peter snorted from the doorway. She means John Stain. Ilana's cheeks flushed pink. Peter. Her mother paused, her hands still in the dough. John Stain, the rugby player. Yes, Ilana said softly. He's different. Her mother studied her carefully, then nodded slowly. Different can be good. But remember, Ilana, you're young. Guard your heart. Ilana nodded. But in her chest, her heart was already racing ahead. From that first yes in the courtyard, our story blossomed. We were just kids, but the way our lives twined together was anything but childish. Notes slipped under desks, corners folded into hearts, walks beneath jacarandas where our shoes crunched the blossoms like confetti. Letters written over holidays, scrawled in half-neat ink, filled with dreams and doodles her daisies, my clumsy rugby balls. Where others drifted from romance to romance, Ilana and I anchored ourselves in each other. At university, I saw boys and girls tangled in breakups, stitched together again by rebound dates, only to unravel weeks later. But not us. While others stumbled, we grew roots deep, strong, steady. She was the melody to my rhythm, the calm to my storm. The jacarandas bloomed purple that morning, as if nature itself had decided to scatter confetti in their honor. The courtyard buzzed with laughter and chatter, old friends embracing, cousins sneaking extra sweets, children darting between the chairs. Faces of every shade glowed with joy, stitched together by love rather than blood. John stood at the altar, his hands tightening and loosening as nerves tangled with happiness. When Ilana appeared, radiant in white, her eyes steady on his, the crowd fell quiet. Peter leaned over to his mother with a grin. Well, he said softly, she found her match after all. And as Ilana reached John's side, the hush broke into applause. Their joined hands, the start of a future as bright as the blossoms falling, all around them. When we married, the farm opened its arms to us like an old friend. I'll build you a house with more rooms than we'll ever need, I told her one morning as we stood by the land, the Cape wind tugging at her hair. One day it'll echo with children's laughter. Alana laughed, swatting my chest with her small hand. How many? 20, I said, grinning but not joking. She shook her head, eyes sparkling. 20? You're mad. All right, maybe 10. But you'll be the one doing the nappies. It became our private joke, our secret vision, and maybe, for me, a promise. But months turned into years, and the rooms of our house stayed silent. Ilana cried quietly into my shirt at night, her shoulders shaking while I held her close. I pressed my lips to her hair and whispered, "The Lord will provide, in His time." And in His time, He did. Twins, Rihanna and Sonia, born after tears, prayers, and waiting that felt like forever. When I held them for the first time, I wept without shame, to tiny miracles wrapped in blankets, their eyes still searching the world for the first time. Never, I whispered, voice raw, never have I seen anything so beautiful. For a while, our world was filled with them, their cries, their coos, their little fists clutching at life. But I saw the way Ilana's eyes lingered on me, the way she caught the longing I thought I kept hidden. One year, quietly, she stopped her pills. When morning sickness came, she smiled through tears, though the road ahead was steep. This time, the pregnancy was brutal. Hospitals, fear, kneeling prayers at bedsides. The birth nearly cost her life. For days she lay in a coma, her body fighting to stay. For days I knelt beside her bed, hands clasped, begging God not to take her. When her eyes finally fluttered open, I broke. Tears fell down my face as I pressed my forehead to hers. Her first words, hoarse and trembling, "The baby." I choked on relief. Healthy, perfect, our son, Daniel, our miracle boy. Our families had shaped us long before we shaped a family of our own. Afrikaner homes lived by values that ran deep: respect for the land, reverence for hard work, and family above all else. I grew up under a father who woke me before dawn, teaching me that discipline wasn't punishment but a gift. He said work was worship, and if you did it with a clean heart, God saw it. My mother was the thread of faith that held us together. Every harvest, every meal, every prayer, she reminded us it was God's hand, not ours. Around the supper table, we prayed first, always. Sundays were for church, no matter the weather. Ilana had been raised much the same. On her father's farm, she learned how to bake bread in the wood stove, how to greet every worker with dignity, and how to never waste what the land provided. She remembered her mother's Coke sisters sizzling in hot oil on Saturday mornings, psalms sung in Afrikaans on Sundays, and endless cups of coffee poured for every visitor who crossed the threshold. "Je deel wat je het," her mother always said. You share what you have. And so, on our farm, those traditions lived again. Rihanna and Sonia were 6 now, filling the farmhouse with laughter and mischief. They were playful, bold, full of life, but always kind. Already, they knew to say "Seblief" and "Dankie" before they asked for anything that mattered to us. Daniel, barely 1, toddled about the wide hallways, sticky fingers smudging everything in reach. He chased after his sisters with determination, laughter spilling out of him like sunlight breaking through clouds. The house had been built for this, for children. Wide corridors where feet echoed like drums, high ceilings that caught every squeal of play, verandas meant for bedtime stories told under the stars. And though we were blessed, though our house was alive with voices, I still dreamed of more. The struggle of fertility, but blessings had not come easily. Every pregnancy was a battle, every child was wrestled from hope and fear. Rihanna and Sonia were miracles after years of waiting. Daniel's birth had nearly broken us both. For days in that hospital I'll never forget it. Her pale hand in mine, machines humming. Me, a grown man, weeping and begging. I swore that I would never again let her risk her life for my dream. And yet my heart still yearned. The dream from when I was 16 still clung to me. A farmhouse filled with children, 15, 20, laughter in every room. A legacy as wide as the land itself. Ilana saw it. She knew it. And sometimes, in the quiet, it frightened her. But still love was the soil of our home, no matter how hard the seasons. That was what held us together. The dream in his heart, From the time he was a boy, John Stain had said he wanted 20 children. People laughed. Even Alana laughed, shaking her head in mock exasperation whenever he said it. But John never laughed with them. For him, it wasn't a joke, it was a vision. A house full of children, a farm alive with their voices, a legacy as wide as the land itself. Now, years later, as he sat by the fire one quiet evening, that boy whose dream pressed against his ribs like a restless bird, the farmhouse, usually alive with footsteps, was hushed. Upstairs, the twins slept tangled in each other's arms, and Daniel's soft breaths drifted down the corridor. The fire crackled low, casting shadows that danced across the Bible lying open on the side table, its pages worn from years of their prayers. John leaned forward, elbows braced on his knees, hands twisting together, those same hands that could steady a spooked bull or fix a broken plow, now trembling with nerves. Sweat beaded on his brow. He stole a glance at Alana, who sat opposite him, her hair catching the orange glow of the flames, her face tired but beautiful in its stillness. "Alana," he began, voice low, hesitant. Do you think we could try for just one more child?" The words slipped out, heavy as stones, trembling like the moment before a storm breaks. Alana's head turned sharply. Her eyes met his, fierce even in their weariness. "John," she said, her voice edged with both anger and fear, "that's madness. You know what happened when Daniel was born. You know I almost didn't make it. Do you want me to risk everything again? To leave our children without a mother for your dream?" The fire snapped in the hearth, the silence between them deepening. She loved him. Oh, she loved him with a devotion that time and hardship had only sharpened. He was her partner, her joy, the father of her miracles. But how could he still speak of more children after what her body had already endured? John dropped his gaze, ashamed. His big, work-roughened hands knotted together like a guilty schoolboy's. "I know," he whispered. "I know it sounds foolish. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to lose you, but—" His voice cracked, and he swallowed hard before finishing. "I've always wanted a big family. 15, 20, I know it sounds mad, but it's been in me since I was a boy." His eyes roamed the room, seeing not the firelight, but the ghosts of the future he had imagined since youth. Wide corridors echoing with children's laughter. Bedrooms filled with little voices calling for him at dawn. The farmhouse alive with the very sound of legacy. For John, it wasn't about numbers. It was about life filling the land. About ensuring the Stain farm would breathe for generations. Alana sat still, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her jaw tense. She studied him, the man who had given her love, safety, laughter, and faith, but who also carried this uncheckable longing inside him, a longing that frightened her because she feared it might never let him rest. Her breath trembled as she spoke again, softer now, almost a plea. "John, I'm not afraid of raising more children. I'm afraid of leaving the ones we already have behind." John closed his eyes, the weight of her words cutting deep. And yet, even in the heaviness of that moment, in the sharp edges of disagreement and fear, something remained unbroken between them. Love, always love. Because in the Stain family, love was the soil in which everything grew. The longing, for most men, that ordeal, the near death of a wife in childbirth, would have silenced the dream of more children forever. For John Stain, strangely, it did not. He loved Alana with a love steady as the mountains, the kind of love that sat for days by a hospital bed whispering prayers over her motionless body. He never wanted to risk her life again, God knew. And yet, the yearning did not die. It grew instead, pressing harder with each passing year, gnawing silently at him like hunger that couldn't be fed. It began to show headaches, missed meals, long silences at the supper table that stretched to thin. One afternoon, Samuel, the foreman, who had worked the Stain lands for 30 years, caught Alana near the kraal, his hat twisted nervously in his hands, his weathered eyes uneasy. "Madam," he said softly, "Baz. He is not himself. Something is wrong." Alana's heart sank. She already knew. The fireplace. That evening, she found John by the fireplace. The flames painted his broad shoulders in gold and shadow. He sat hunched forward, as if bearing a weight heavier than cattle ropes and weathered soil. His strong hands were clasped so tightly that the knuckles had gone white. Alana walked quietly, drawing her shawl tighter, and lowered herself beside him. "What's wrong, my love?" Her voice was gentle but insistent. "Please talk to me." John turned slowly, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, fingers lingering as though afraid she'd vanish. I'm okay, he muttered. Don't do that, she said firmly, laying her hand over his. Don't lie to me. The fire hissed, sparks snapping into the dark. John's jaw tightened. His shoulders shook with the effort of silence. And finally, he broke. Alana, he whispered, voice raw. My heart, the same heart that loves you, also longs for more children. But I won't ask it of you. I know it's selfish. I'll shake it off. It will pass. I'm happy with the children we have. The words tumbled out too quickly, like a man trying to outrun his own truth. Alana froze, her own heart splintering, not because she doubted his love, but because she recognized the depth of his longing. A longing she had seen once before. A longing that had destroyed her mother. Without a word, she wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him against her chest. For the first time in years, they both wept. Tears mingled, salt and sorrow and love, falling into the shadows of the fire. Alana's memory. Later, lying awake in the quiet of their room, Alana stared at the ceiling beams, haunted by memory. Her father, his hunger for children that outpaced her mother's body, his silences, his secrets, until that Christmas morning. A barefoot girl, no older than 10, knocking at their door. She had her father's eyes, his smile, his unmistakable blood. Behind her, whispers, rumors confirmed. 10, 12 children scattered across the valley, born of women who had worked their lands. Her mother's face that day ashen, shattered, yet forced into composure for the child who stood there. Within 5 years, grief consumed her. She withered slowly, her laughter gone, her heart fractured into dust too fine to breathe. Alana always said her mother had died of a broken heart, and now, sitting by her own fire, she swore to herself, not in my marriage, not in my house, not with my John. Sleep did not come that night. The fire had long burned down to embers, and still Alana lay awake beside John, listening to the rise and fall of his breath. His hand rested over her waist, warm, protective, but her heart churned with unease. She stared into the dark until dawn smeared pale gold across the windows. By morning she was weary-eyed, yet her resolve had hardened. After dropping the twins at school and settling Daniel into his cot, she sat at the kitchen table with the phone trembling in her hand. Her pulse hammered in her ears as she dialed her brother's number. Alana. Peter's voice came steady, warm, that same voice that had shielded her in childhood fights, the voice that always seemed to know when she needed it most. Peter, she whispered, and then the dam broke. The words spilled out in gasps. John's confession by the fire. Her fear of another pregnancy, her exhaustion, her guilt at not being able to give him what he longed for. For a long time, silence filled the line. 30 seconds, 40. Alana thought perhaps the call had dropped. She almost hung up when finally, Peter spoke, his tone heavy, deliberate. Alana, would you rather John cheat behind your back, or, he paused, his breath audible, as if even he feared his words, or would you be willing to allow him an arrangement, not a mistress, not someone to replace you, but a woman who could give him more children? The words struck like a physical blow. Alana gasped, clutching her chest. Her legs buckled, and she sank hard into the chair. The kitchen seemed to spin around her. Her mouth went dry, her heart thundered painfully. What did you just say? She whispered, barely able to form the words. I don't say this to hurt you, Peter rushed on, but I've seen it before. That hunger, it consumes a man. If it festers, it will destroy him. Alana, I only want the best for you, for your marriage. Then his voice shifted, sharper, crueler than he intended. Chances are, he might already have a child somewhere. Alana's breath caught in her throat. She sat in stunned silence, her hand shaking so violently the receiver rattled against her ear. Peter softened, as though to mend the damage. Do you remember Zuri Zikalala, Joseph's daughter? Just passed matric, top marks. She's brilliant, hard-working, but her family can't afford university. She's looking for work. Alana croaked. She remembered her well, beautiful, humble, a child of the farm workers she'd grown up around, bright-eyed, always polite, innocent. Yes, Peter said simply, and then silence stretched. Something flickered in his voice, a dangerous warmth, quickly buried. He cleared his throat. The farm needs me. I'll speak with you soon. The line went dead. Alana lowered the phone slowly, staring at the blank screen. Her hand trembled, her mind spiraled. Zuri. Daniel fussed in his crib. She hushed him absently, forgetting he hadn't eaten since breakfast. The kettle boiled, whistled, then cooled without tea being poured. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. She wandered from room to room, her thoughts replaying Peter's words. An arrangement. Another woman. Zuri. When Samuel knocked on the back door, she jolted violently, nearly dropping the dishcloth she had been wringing to threads. "Madam," Samuel said gently, hat in hand, "should I take the girls to extramurals? They'll be late." Ilana blinked. The girls. Panic surged. She snatched Daniel into her arms, stumbled to the car, and raced to the school. 20 minutes late, she apologized breathlessly to the waiting teacher as Rihanna and Sonia clambered into the backseat. Their voices rose immediately in a squabble over the window seat. "Stop pulling my hair. You started it." Ilana barely heard them. Her hands clutched the wheel until her knuckles whitened. Her mind remained locked on Peter's voice. Would you rather he cheat? Maybe, Zuri. Her chest tightened. The gravel road stretched endlessly home.
And so, the wheels are turning. A decision made in faith, born of love and desperation, is now setting destinies into motion. Ilana's heart still trembles between fear and hope. John's desire has found a new shape, one that neither of them yet understands. And far away in Pumanga, a young woman named Zuri is packing her dreams into a travel bag, not knowing that every mile toward Cape Town will pull her deeper into a story that will test love, loyalty, and faith itself. This is only the beginning. If Zuri's story has moved you, if you felt her family's prayers, Ilana's ache, or John's quiet longing, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your voice helps this story reach those who need to hear it. Stay with us, because in the next episode, we follow Zuri's journey as she steps onto that bus, leaving home, stepping into the unknown. And what awaits her will change every life her story touches. This is Zuri's story, a sin called love.